The biggest question that we have, which may never be answered, is when did Brian Laundrie's mother pen this super creepy letter to him? We're going to ponder on that and read the super creepy letter in today's video. Hello Sofa Squad, and welcome back to the sofa. Sofa's right there. So is Roscoe. My name is Paul. I hope you're doing well. Now, as you heard in my little intro, we're going to be going back to the Gabby Petito case, the Brian Laundrie case, and discussing one huge thing that had gone down. Well, I shouldn't say had gone down. It's still going down. It's still unfolding. And this is the burn after reading letter. We're going to read through the letter, and I'm going to make some commentary on it. And as I said in the beginning, we don't know when she wrote this, the mother. She claims that she wrote this before the situation went down with Gabby Petito. When they were leaving on the trip, she wrote it while their relationship was strained, referring to her and her son, Brian Laundrie. But as you'll see, I kind of beg to differ in my opinion, but again, it's just that. It is my opinion. I wasn't there. This is entertainment purposes only, and I welcome you to do your own research, come to your own conclusions, and share it down below in the comment section. Now, what we're going to do before we jump in is we're going to do a quick, like, literal 60-second review of what this case is. If you have, because there's a lot of people at least new on this channel that maybe have never followed this case before, and whatnot. So this is not meant to do a deep dive into the nuts and bolts of the case. I have a playlist if you want to watch it, and there's tons of other channels out there that have lots of info on it. So let's go ahead and talk about a few of the key aspects of this case. Brian Laundrie and Gabby Petito, they were a couple, and they went and embarked on this, like, cross-country road trip. She had a big social media following, and they were kind of doing the van life and doing all that. This was the summer of 2021. Now, things went down south at some point during this, and Gabby Petito was found strangled to death in Wyoming's Grand Teton National Park. Now, Brian would return home with their van without Gabby, come up with some stories, and then he would basically bolt, right, and kind of disappear. And this is a point of contention for a lot of stuff as to whether his parents were helping him and whatnot. Now, eventually, his remains as well would be found with, like, some of his belongings and whatnot in Florida's Carlton Reserve in October 2021. This is not too long after Gabby's remains had been found and whatnot. Now, they also had found a notebook with, like, a confession in there, like, that he wrote. So, you know, there's that. Now, of course, in all this is this letter that has come to light, the burn after read letter, and the attorney for the Petitos say that it was penned after Gabby's murder. That's what they're saying. There's a lawsuit going on right now between the Petitos and the Laundries, and remember that Gabby Petito's parents are Joseph Petito and Nicole Schmidt, and they filed a lawsuit back in March of 2022. They're seeking more than $30,000 in damages for the mental anguish they suffered due to the alleged deceit of the Laundries. Now, again, that is like the 10-second version there, or maybe the 60-second, I don't know. There's lots of details to this. There's, you know, they got stopped by cops, the cops let them go. I mean, it goes on and on, right? But at the end of the day, Gabby Petito lost her life all too soon at the hands of Brian Laundrie. So there's that. Now, let's get into this letter. So kind of knowing those nuts and bolts of this, you know, he comes home, he disappears. It's like, whether the parents, like, stall the cops or help him get away or whatever. These were all questions going on. Well, now this letter has finally come out, and it's like, well, I see why the parents didn't want this to come out, okay? So, yeah. And what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna read from a little transcript of it. I'll put the transcript on the screen if you just want to pause to read it yourself and you don't want to listen to me. I'm gonna be stopping along the way. I mean, it's not that long, and making some commentary, but also at the end of it, I'm gonna give my overall thoughts. So let's jump in. Okay, so Roberta writes, I just want you to remember I will always love you, and I know you will always love me. You are my boy. Nothing can make me stop loving you. Nothing will or could ever divide us, no matter what we do or where we go or what we say. We will always love each other. If you're in jail, I will bake a cake with a file in it. If you need to dispose of a body, I will show up with a shovel and garbage bags. If you fly to the moon, I will be watching the skies for your re-entry. If you say you hate my guts, I'll get new guts. Okay, so let's pause real quick. Yeah, so that whole first part right there, super creepy. Now, here's the thing, and we'll get into kind of like what the family says about this and whatnot. So again, if this is, well, we wrote the letter when we were kind of having a strained relationship, this had nothing to do with Gabby. Okay, so let's take it to that. Well, then this is like a way over the top. The whole thing of like, you know, the you're in jail and all this kind of stuff. And I get she's saying some of these are like, you know, insider jokes or, you know, lines from movies that they only knew, or not that they only knew, but you know what I'm saying, like amongst themselves. I get that. This is creepy. Why would you write something like this to your son? There's something very off about this. Like, pretend like that didn't happen with Gabby. Pretend like this was just, we got a peep shot into these people's lives, right? This just feels odd. I can't imagine telling a child, if you need to dispose of a body, I'll show up with a shovel and garbage bags. You know, now on that same note, here's the other thing. So pretend that this was like she totally wrote this after this happened, like she was like, something's gone down south or whatever. Why would you put this in the letter and make it so obvious, like if you need to dispose of a body type thing? But also, if you're not thinking that somebody else will see it, then maybe that's why. Andrew said burn after reading, which he never did. Anyways, let's keep going. She continues, remember that love is a verb, not a noun. It's not a thing. It's not words. It is actions. Watch people's actions to know if they love you, not their words. Therefore, and this is quotes, therefore I am certain that neither death nor life, nor angels, nor the ruling spirits, nor things present, nor things to come, nor powers from above, nor powers from below, nothing in the entire create world can separate our love, neither hostile powers nor messengers of heaven nor monarchs of earth. Nothing has the power to separate us. Romans 8:38 extended version. And then she goes on to write, nothing can separate us, not hatred, not hunger, not homelessness, not threats, not even sin, not thinkable or unthinkable. Not the thinkable or unthinkable can get between us. Not time, not miles and miles and miles. Now, just on this part right here, where she goes into the whole dynamic of, you know, this quote in the Romans 8:38, but then the bottom here where she's like, you know, nothing can get in between us, not sin, not the thinkable or unthinkable can get between us. I mean, to me, again, if you're reading between lines here, I'm like, you know, my God, I mean, it's like everything that happened, right? Because when you tell me, like, not even sin, well, clearly we see the sin that took place, right? That could be interpreted as many things. Not the thinkable or unthinkable can get between us. I mean, come on, right? What do you think the unthinkable is? Your kid killed somebody. Not time, jail, not miles and miles and miles, he's on the run. You know what I'm saying? Like all these things, you know, that I'm just like reading between the lines here. And again, I could just be being extra. This could literally just be coincidental, right? Now let's go on and read this statement. And I forgot to say this at the beginning, but this part is coming from a news article. I'm going to link the whole thing down below if you want to just read the whole thing yourself or whatever, because I'm just taking a few excerpts out and reviewing them with you. But let's read what the spokesperson, the attorney, had to say. The letter to Brian was written prior to Gabby and Brian leaving my home for their trip, said Roberta Laundrie in the statement. Previously, I submitted an affidavit to the court for very limited purposes, but that is not the whole story. Now that the letter has been shared, I ask you read it in its entirety and understand that the letter contains other phrases besides those highlighted by Pat Riley for sensationalism and to bolster his case. I truly love my son and simply wanted to convey to him how much he meant to me and how much I loved him. I am sure people use phrases all the time to express to their loved ones the depths of their love. Although I choose words that I thought would be impactful with Brian given our relationship, the letter was in no way related to Gabby. Please read the entire letter before you believe the hype put out by Pat Riley. Yes, sister. We read the whole letter. And the whole thing's creepy to me, okay? Now, again, I get everybody is different, right? Every relationship is different. Every family operates different. I get this. I understand this. But again, I'm going from what she says. Okay, so my son and Gabby are getting ready to head on this trip. I mean, it just seems so weird to say these things. You know, it doesn't seem like someone would say that before then. There's just, it feels dark energy, you know what I'm saying? Now, what it feels more like to me, you know, again, this is just my opinion, this, you know, who knows if we'll ever know the truth to this. This feels more like something has gone down and you're trying to let a loved one know, almost like, look, it doesn't matter what you've done, I still love you. You know, nothing's going to come between us type situation. And so then given the context of everything, it almost makes their actions seem more like, so maybe they did kind of give him a heads up to get on his way or whatever. But then that also conjures questions up, because in that scope of things, then you have to ask yourself, well, did they know what he was planning on doing in the reserve? You know, and would a parent really want their son to go do that? You know, that type thing. And so then, you know, I also go, and I'm just thinking out loud at this point, y'all let me know what you think in the comment sections about some of these, you know, just theories that I'm coming up with here. So if pretend that like he came home and they knew something was off, but he didn't tell them exactly. But I mean, obviously it wasn't that long the cops were knocking and all this. You know, you're going to know as a parent, like something really bad went down. So she writes this letter or whatever, not thinking maybe he's going to go kill himself, but maybe he's going on the run, you know, something along those lines. But she might not have known the extent of this, you know, but maybe he was like, look, you know, I beat her up real bad and, you know, she ran off, or who knows. Because I guess I go back and forth and waver between who would honestly put the lines in there about a shovel and, you know, all this kind of stuff and hiding a body and that type of thing if you knew that somebody actually killed somebody. I mean, but again, here you see the cases we watch, for God's sakes. People are buying the evidence from Walmart on video and sometimes returning it after the murder. I mean, let's just get real here, right? This is the state that we live in now. So if that turns out that that was all put in there, not a surprise then. You know, it's just par for the course at this point. Now, to continue here with some of the statement from this article, it does say, Roberta said in the affidavit that she and Brian shared a love for books such as The Runaway Bunny and Little Bear, and she claims one such book, Burn After Writing, was often the subject of a joke between her, Brian, and Gabby, and is the reason she wrote Burn After Reading on the envelope that contained the letter to her son. She admits that the letter does contain references that some would think are about her son and Petito. However, she claims there's no connection between her words and what happened to the couple. And again, this could very well be the case, right? I mean, we at the end of the day, we don't know, right? I wasn't there. Most likely, if you're watching, you weren't there. We've watched this play out. You know, we will never know, because at the end of the day, Gabby's no longer here. Brian's no longer here. And the parents lawyered up very quickly in this. It's been very tight-lipped. We'll never know what truly went down in those final moments when he came home, if he disclosed to his parents what he did, what he didn't do, that type thing. Definitely in the context of things, you know, it's just in poor taste reading this letter. Even if, you know, and I'm not trying to say that if it turns out that we could prove that she wrote this way beforehand, you know, okay, that's their thing, right? As creepy as it is to me, that's how their relationship is or whatever. They might say stuff like this back and forth and it's a joke and whatnot, not thinking that it would turn out that her son would actually kill the girl who has lived with them, who they just seemingly turned their back on very quickly, right? And that is one issue that I do take with this, is that when he returned home, you have to question, if your son returned home with he and his, you know, bride-to-be's van without her, and what do you say? You know, I mean, like, that's super weird, right? You know, how do you talk your way out of this? And then obviously, as this started unfolding very quickly, Gabby's parents are calling and a wall goes up from his parents to them. And that's where I have an issue where I'm like, this was going to be your daughter-in-law. You know, this girl lived with you. This was, like, in my opinion, family, right? The next thing from blood, you know, so that reaction, it really just kind of shocked me. It still does, obviously. So then with this letter and looking at it, I'm just like, well, yeah, I mean, I could totally see these people helping their son, you know, hide or whatever. Now, at the end of the day, does any of this bring Gabby back? Unfortunately not. I wish that it could. My heart aches for what Gabby went through, for what her heart ached. It was a very hard case to watch because it deals with DV, and watching the trauma that she's in, watching her talking to police officers, how upset she is, and knowing if you could turn back time and go in there and make it all different and get her out of that situation, and honestly just hug her, you know, and just get her out of there and hug her and get her, home or something, it's like none of this would ever happen. You know what I'm saying? But such is the case with a lot of these cases, right? If we could turn back time, we would make it all go away. And just it's heartbreaking, and it was heartbreaking again to see the Laundrie's reaction to it. And at the end of the day, she's gone, their son's gone, lives are destroyed left and right. But that is what ends up happening in these horrifying cases. You know, life is never the same for so many people. So that's it. Let me know, what do you think? My big question to you today is, when do you think she wrote the letter? When do you believe that she wrote it beforehand? Okay, and if you do, what are your thoughts on that? Do you believe that she wrote this as a last hurrah, son, you're going on the run because we think you've done something really bad? And if so, what are your thoughts on that? And until we gather back around here to talk about more thoughts on these terrible, tragic cases that we do review here, I'll see y'all there.